A year ago, I began this channel to share lessons learned from my unexpected retirement. Earlier this week, I was preparing an anniversary video, but unfortunately, I spilled some water on my laptop. So while this guy is on rice, I used the Mac Mini downstairs to prepare a director's cut of that first video. Better graphics and better sound. Stay through the end and you'll be surprised. I'll also include an update on this guy. About half of all retirees are going to find out that their retirement began a lot sooner than they expected. If you're worried about an early retirement, this video is going to offer 3 tips that you can take now to prepare, as well as 3 tips to take if you find that you're suddenly retired. My name is Jim, and I was retired. I'm using that passive past tense on purpose. I didn't retire, I was retired. I know a lot of people are out there in YouTube land talking about financial independence, retire early, FIRE. But I'm not talking about FIRE. I'm talking about fired. I'm talking about called to an HR meeting at 4 p.m. in the afternoon on a Thursday and fired 1 month before I turned 59. Yet, I've discovered that that may have been the best decision I never made. As I approach 65 later this year, I decided to take a look back at my retirement and see if there are any tips that I can offer about emergency landing of a retirement plan well short of the runway. Before I begin, I should explain that I am not a financial professional. Although I have a PR background in the financial industry, I don't have any special certificates. So take this video as entertaining ideas from one educated consumer to another. Always do your own due diligence. But please comment, like, and subscribe down below if this exchange of ideas is of interest to you. How many are there out there who might be on a similar flight path? Allianz Life did a survey and they found that half of retirees retired sooner than they expected. 34% retired because of job loss. Another 25% cited health concerns. I have a feeling that due to the pandemic in 2020, we're going to see a lot more people who are forced into an earlier retirement. There are steps that you can take now to prepare for an emergency landing of your retirement should it happen. And there are steps that you can take if you're in that predicament in the future. Let's begin with 3 tips that you could take to make your retirement plan more resilient. Number 1, create an emergency cash fund. You should have at least 1 to 3 years worth of expenses put away in safe bank accounts so that you can tap that asset before your long-term retirement assets. In my case, my children were exiting their college years and I had already put away money through the college years to make sure tuition was ready to be paid each semester. So I was able to take those dollars as college years ended and begin thinking of those as my emergency cash buffer. I know 1 to 3 years is a lot of cash to put aside, but by the time you reach a retirement age, which could come sooner than you expected, it's good to have that cash on hand. Start slow. Build up 6 months worth of expenses, and then a year, and then 2 years, and then 3 years. Build up that cash cushion. It'll be extremely important should a sudden retirement come into your picture. The second tip is to pay down debt. While you're working now, pay down the debt. We began that long time ago. As we were getting married, we decided credit cards were to be paid at the end of each month. We don't run up any debt on credit cards. In fact, I had to pay down my credit cards before I could get married. My wife said she was going to marry me and not my debt. I passed that lesson on to our 2 children, and they have credit cards that they use. Credit cards are always safer than ATM cards, by the way. Credit cards are paid, though, at the end of each month, so that you don't run up a debt and get into trouble. We also paid down debt over time in our house, which is, for many of us, the largest debt that we own. When we bought our first house, we took a 30-year mortgage, but we made a schedule to pay the mortgage company twice a month. That extra payment went to principal and helped us build up equity. First, to help remove the private mortgage insurance that are on many starter home mortgages. But then eventually, it helped build up enough equity that we could refinance. When we refinanced to a 15-year mortgage, we also made additional payments. Eventually, we paid off the mortgage, and that allowed us to use what used to go to a mortgage payment to added savings for retirement. Now, the third tip to prepare now for a potential early retirement is to max out your retirement savings. Early in our careers, we're all taught that you should at least contribute the 6% to earn your 3% employer match, or whatever the math is in your program. After all, that's free money. However, you shouldn't just stop at that percentage. For every time you get a raise, every time you get a bonus, think about increasing the percentage that you're putting away towards retirement. By the time that you're retirement age, you should be up near the maximums allowed by the IRS. In the coming year, that's $19,500 for those under 50. However, if you're over 50, there's another $6,500 that you could park in your 401k towards your retirement. Imagine if you could contribute the maximum throughout your career. What a difference that could make. Let's show you an example here. I built this financial spreadsheet following the model of Lars Kroijer. He's out there on YouTube, and he has an excellent series of videos that takes you through how to build a financial spreadsheet so that you understand the financial assumptions being made. And I've adapted this a little bit to simplify it for this example. Let's take an example of Minnie Saver, who is 35. She's saving for a retirement at 67. She's expected return is about 8%. With after inflation, that's a 6% real rate of return. And then using standard deviation, you can expect an average annual return of 7.1% with those financial assumptions. She's earning $45,000, and she's contributing 6% of her salary to earn a 3% employer match. Now, salary goes up by inflation every year. It's not taking into account any promotions or bonuses that she might get through the years. And she ends up with $735,000 at the end of 66. So that sounds good. But now let's imagine Max Saver. Same financial assumptions, same age, and same salary, except Max is going to contribute, instead of 6%, the maximum allowed by the IRS each year. And I've gone back and looked at the historic limits in this model. So he's contributing not only the maximum allowed throughout his career, but he begins making catch-up contributions after the age 50 when the IRS allowed those. And that's contributed another $95,000 out of his paycheck. But he ends up with $1.8 million in savings. That's more than double what Minnie has saved in her retirement plan. Also, I went up here and looked at age 60. Suppose both of them retired at 60. Max will have a little over $1 million saved by the time he's 60, and that's about 241% what Minnie has. So an early retirement will affect him a lot less than Minnie. By the way, if you're saving in a traditional IRA, the limits aren't as generous. You're allowed to contribute up to $6,000 in an IRA this year, and $1,000 more if you're 50 and above. But use that advantage if that's your option. There are 3 more tips that I found in the last 5 years on how you can manage through a forced early retirement. Number 1, get a budget. Now in my case, I had been tracking expenses, but not that carefully. I had been using Quicken for many years for my checking account, but I have to tell you that I wasn't always careful about the categories, particularly in credit cards, where I just paid the credit card balance. I just wrote miscellaneous. So when I look back at 2015, the year I retired, I discovered that miscellaneous was 35% of my spending. Miscellaneous can't be one of your biggest pie slices. So I've gotten a lot better, and since then I've added my credit cards to Quicken, so I'm automatically using the categories that the credit card assigns to transactions and tracking expenses that way. In 2020, miscellaneous was 3% of my total expenses. That kind of detail will allow you to do a better job of building a bottom-up estimate of what you really need every year for your retirement. Many financial planners recommend that you start with an estimate of 85% of your pre-retirement salary. However, that's a very rough rule of thumb, and a detailed bottom-up estimate is a lot more accurate. The second thing you have to keep in mind is healthcare costs. We started by switching from the group insurance to Cobra because our children were on the plan and they needed their benefits too. However, it was an expensive option. Cobra asks you to pay not only your share, but the employer's share and an administrative fee on top of that. Rather than using Cobra, you might take a look at what your modified adjusted gross income will be, including any income you're taking from your 401k or retirement savings, because that'll count as ordinary income. But see at that level and the number of folks in your family that need insurance to see if you qualify for any premium subsidies. The third thing you need to think about as you enter an early retirement is, what is your retirement withdrawal plan look like? You're changing from an accumulation to a decumulation of your retirement savings. If you are over the age of 55 but below the age of 59 and a half, there's a special thing that you need to consider called the rule of 55. You're allowed to tap your employer's retirement savings plan, the last plan, after the age of 55 without a 10% penalty. The rest of your plans, your IRAs, are all still subject to a 10% penalty if you take out retirement savings prior to the age of 59 and a half. Once you look at all of the available assets that you have for retirement, including any assets that you may have because of the rule of 55, you need to consider what is your withdrawal strategy. Some people use a simple 4% rule to decide how much they should withdraw from their retirement savings in their retirement years. It's a very simple formula. You take everything that you've saved in your retirement savings and times it by 4%, and that's what you should withdraw. But I recommend using your bottom-up estimate of expenses and then build a strategic withdrawal plan to cover those expenses. You may find that you need to go over the 4% in the early years to cover, for instance, health care. You may decide to take out more from retirement savings in the early years while you wait for Social Security and a pension to kick in later. And that'll be okay as long as it's mapped out strategically. And that also comes to, when are you going to turn on a pension, if you have one, or Social Security? Obviously, waiting until a pension is fully vested is the best choice. So in my case, I'm waiting until 65 for pension dollars to start. And for Social Security, because it builds up over the full retirement age to age 70, I'm going to wait until 70 for the maximum benefits that I can receive. For those born 1960 and later, the full retirement age is 67. But you'll earn another 8% a year up to the age of 70 for leaving the benefits growing in the Social Security fund. If you can wait until 70, it's the best investment for a longevity plan around. You'll earn 8% a year, and I don't know many fixed income investments that would earn 8%. That's the best option if you can afford it. I plan to explore other ideas like this that I've learned from my early retirement to see if it could be a benefit to you. That's why I'm calling this series I Was Retired. But as I said at the beginning of the video, it's the best decision that I never made. Please click, like, comment below, and I'll see you next time. These ideas might be of help to younger baby boomers. Always do your own due. In 2025, the year I, quote, retired. Well, it's working, but I'm not sure how long. So go out to my Twitter feed, I Was Retired, and tell me what you think I should get next.